At the beginning of 1947, this was New York, yet another expedition by the American explorer Richard Byrd arrived on Antarctic shores. It was a very strange expedition. Unlike his previous three, this one was completely financed by the U.S. Navy. Operation High Jump. Now, this report comes from all Russian Navy scientists, etc., telling the story of what happened during the years throughout the Third Reich and the exploration of the Antarctic. Under the command of Admiral Byrd, there was a powerful military squadron. An aircraft carrier, 12 surface ships, 1 submarine, more than 20 airplanes and helicopters, and about 5,000 people on staff. A strange team for a scientific expedition. December the 2nd, 1946, before the start of his expedition, Admiral Byrd, at a press conference, said, "My expedition is military in nature." At the end of January 1947, full-scale aerial reconnaissance began surveying the Antarctic region of Queen Maud Land. Now, quoting from Acts 17:24, "God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands." The German people were very Jesus-loving people. In one statement, Hitler said, "You cannot be a German and Christian, as God is within the German people," a reference to his understanding the Christian churches had been usurped by the Jewish Talmud. He required a Germany that was focused on the present. The mind of the German, he said, had to be focused on the here and now, on the earth. And he was so right. In Isaiah 63, quoting, "And I will tread down the people in mine anger, and make them drunk in my fury, and I will bring down their strength to the earth." Now, the strength of mankind, of course, is their mind. So the Lord himself is saying, "I will bring it back down to the earth, out of the heavenly realm, where people are so focused, back to earth to get things done." This is Hitler, he was dedicated to Jesus in the true meaning of Jesus dying on the cross at the hand of the demonic who had by then dominated the Western Christian world. He believed the ancient gigantic monuments were angelic built, and as such wanted to discover the secrets of creation and build the 1,000-year reign of Christ. His noble efforts were rewarded by the discoveries the Germans had uncovered. The German people was and are the chosen race, and is why the Allies burned alive 25 million civilians in firebombing even today, anything suggesting this is immediately removed by the Zionists, the devil in the so-called Christian world. When he took back Austria, he immediately obtained the spear allegedly used to pierce the heart of Jesus and actively searched for the legendary Holy Grail. The Holy Grail means holy blood genetically and associated with divine wisdom. He saw this as being the holy blood of Germany, and armed with these holy ideals was allowed by the angels, the watchers, to enter their domain of Antarctica. With an analysis of ancient knowledge brought incredible results. This was the belief. For the Grail Cup isn't just a symbol of ancient knowledge, but also a centuries-old moral code. In Antarctic, Germany were shown wonders by the angels. The Germans described it as paradise on earth. As the war drew to an end, the Americans were able to seize the secret documents of advanced technology which mystified the Allies. Likewise, Russia seized documents, and they, like the Americans, rounded up as many German scientists they could find. But most of the top scientists had escaped. 100 submarines were unaccounted for. And where did they flee to? Antarctica. How many trips did they make until they vanished? The angels informed them the souls who died in Germany would reincarnate as saints after his second coming, and Christ would liberate Germany from the Zionists and introduce the plans of Hitler. They had to await the Christ, reborn on January the 11th, 1944 in Australia. Now, Americans, this is a Russian man speaking, have always been interested in the techno-magical legacy of Germany. Suddenly, the inexplicable occurs. The expedition, designed to last 6 months, is quickly aborted after 2 months, leaving the Antarctic coast deserted. It was an actual retreat. The real facts, reliable evidence and sensational phenomenon in the film. It all went to plan in the first weeks. Tens of thousands of photos were taken. Suddenly, the inexplicable happened. The 6-month expedition terminated after only 2 months, fleeing the Antarctica coast. It was a real fast retreat. They lost a destroyer, almost half their carrier-based aircraft, dozens of sailors and officers. To commission investigation, members of the U.S. Congress, Admiral Byrd said the following, quote, "In the event of another war, America can be attacked by an enemy that has the ability to fly from pole to pole with incredible speed." What made the Americans flee? In 1945, 18 months before Admiral Byrd's expedition began, 2 German submarines entered Mar del Plata, port in Argentina, surrendering to authorities. These were no ordinary submarines. They were from the so-called Führer convoy, a top-secret fleet fulfilling missions. Details have remained a secret till now. The submarine crews were reluctant to cooperate. Even so, the Americans learned a few things. The commander of U-boat U-530 spoke of his involvement in an operation codenamed Valkyrie 2. 2 weeks before the war's end, the U-boat U-530 left the quay, heading for the shores of Antarctica. On board of the submarine were passengers with faces covered in bandages, as well as Third Reich relics. The commander of another U-boat, U-977, Heinz Schaffer, later testified that he followed the same route. It was found that German submarines repeatedly followed the Antarctic route. But why go there? In 1820, it was discovered by 2 Russian explorers, Yelenchmersen and Lazarev. Somebody else can pronounce that much better than I can. Since then, this mysterious continent, bigger than Europe, continues to attract explorers like a magnet. However, the 10-metre high sheer icy shores made the continent impregnable for many years. For almost a century, Antarctica remained unknown. Only coastlines were marked on the map. Suddenly, this distant and useless icy continent aroused a strange interest in the Germans. Large funds were allocated for Antarctic study. 2 research expeditions were arranged. This happened just before the war was due to start. In January 1939, 2 catapult-controlled airplanes, the Passat and Boreas, took off from the deck of the Schwabenland. They began patrolling Queen Maud Land, managed to secure for the Third Reich territory the size of Germany. New Swabia. In April 1939, the experienced polar explorer, Captain Alfred Reacher, "I've completed the mission entrusted to me by Air Marshal Goering." For the first time, German aircraft flew over the Antarctic continent. This unusual mission then passed to the Führer's sea wolves, the U-boats. Later, Karl Donitz let slip a strange phrase: My submariners have found a true paradise on Earth." In 1943, at the peak of the war with Russia, Grand Admiral, "At the other end of the Earth, we've made an impregnable citadel for our Führer." Back then, the Grand Admiral of the German Naval Fleet's words. Today we can only hypothesize what the Grand Admiral meant. Recently, huge underground lakes were found a kilometre deep under the ice. The lake's temperature is 18 degrees Celsius. Located above the water's surface are dome-like vaults filled with warm air. It's possible that from these heated lakes, a constant river of warm water flows into the ocean. These warm rivers may have formed large underground ice tunnels, perfect for the construction of secret bases. From the ocean's edge, any submarine could easily pass under the coastal ice into the tunnels, immune from storms and polar cold. At the start of 1939, regular trips were made between Antarctica and Germany in a specially equipped and modified research vessel named the Swabia, but were shocked to find thousands of highly qualified Third Reich specialists had vanished and weren't listed as dead. Over 100 submarines had also vanished. The famous polar explorer and admiral of the U.S. Navy, Richard Byrd, received the order to destroy the Nazi base in Antarctica. But things went wrong. The resistance met by the American squadron even now raises many questions. Admiral Byrd not only reported fighter jets with incredible capacities to Washington, he also discussed an attack on the expedition by strange flying saucers. They emerged from the water at high speed, causing heavy damage to the expedition. On February 26, 1947, a battle took place, which is described by a member of the expedition, an experienced pilot called John Syrison. They flew vertically out of the water in a fury, slipping between the masts of the ships with such speed that the air flow perturbed and dislodged the radio antenna. The two corsairs from the Casablanca were slain by some kind of mysterious ray, shot from the nose section of the flying saucers. They then dived into the water near the ships. At the time I was on the Casablanca's deck and saw it as you now see me. I didn't understand these objects were silent as they floated between ships, like a satanic beast spitting deadly fire. Suddenly I saw the destroyer, Murdoch, which was about 120 feet away. The flames flashed and it began to sink. Despite the danger, rescue teams and lifeboats were immediately dispatched to the disaster site from other ships. The nightmare lasted about 20 minutes. When the saucers again dived under the water, we evaluated our losses. They were terrifying. Who did these flying saucers belong to? Could it have been Nazi Germany? After the war, in Nazi secret archives, intriguing photos and drawings were discovered. They proved that German scientists were actually engaged. At the time, nothing like this existed. Anunnaki, when translated, means legacy of the ancestors. However, the Society's scope of interests was broader than ancient German history study. Nazi ideology was based on the theory that in the past there was a powerful Earth civilization with access to the secrets of the universe. Somewhere encrypted and scattered, this higher knowledge was preserved. Specifically, they were tasked with reviving the superhuman in Germany. It was tested for the first and last time on February the 14th, 1945, near Prague. The lift power was created by the silent flameless engine of Victor Schauberger. The lift power was created by the silent, again. Reports say the unpiloted disc reached a height of 15 kilometres, that's 15,000 metres, in 3 minutes. With a horizontal speed of 2,200 kilometres per hour. The developer of its main engine, Victor Schauberger, later recalled, the model tested in February 1945 was built in collaboration with world-class combustion engineer experts. It was Keitel who had the disc prototype blown up, depicting flying discs above an Antarctic base are an artist's fantasy. They were made to test parts of the disc prototype within certain parameters, or were part of presentations to the authorities for funding purposes. It's vital to credit the German scientists and engineers who achieved huge successes. The Third Reich's leap in science and technology wasn't accidental. Flying out of Antarctic waters in 1947. Regarding the sources that emerged from the water witnessed in the 1940s, and nowadays the recorded sightings of flights of unidentified flying objects emerging from seas, oceans, lakes, etc. I am sure that in 1947 the Germans could not have had such technology, and neither could any country. But if the Germans did not attack the American expedition in 1947, who did? Emerging out of the water, shining saucers, spheres, cigar-like objects, with an analysis of ancient knowledge, brought incredible results. However, the defeat the Nazis suffered was not accidental. In the polar and surrounding areas are not unusual facts. Everywhere, unidentified flying objects are observed. Viktor Berezhnev, first-rank captain, veteran of Soviet Navy intelligence, as a commander in Soviet Navy intelligence. These unidentified flying objects don't only exist in the form of a glowing ball of some vague nature, but rather have a definite technological body. One particular case I am familiar with was where, over the islands of South Georgia, very strange flying objects were observed. Emerging from beneath the waters, fishermen saw an object, as it is shown here on these pictures. Despite the strong wind, the object remained static for a long time. Clearly, it wasn't a cloud. At night, this triangle not only shone, but lights were I'll go back to that. But lights, and then at the end of 1942, a lightly armed flying disc took to the air. It's alleged that before the war's end, 17 types of flying discs were made. The Germans wanted to use them as spying devices. The generals who took part in the Battle of Kursk, and two Soviet Union heroes I knew personally, a pilot and a tank commando, described to me what they saw, a disc hung in the sky during the Kursk battle. What was it? They did not know. Neither the Russians nor Germans recognized it. The saucer wasn't made by us, I assure you. Among these disc drawings and photos is a saucer identified as the Hornibu. Anna might be able to pronounce that for me. Data on the discs reads like science fiction. According to descriptions, they used an alternative source of energy, the so-called converter of Hans Kohler, which required no fossil fuel. It was even planned to take the Hanobu 3 disc type into space. Hard to believe, who knows? German photo seized by the Russians, 71 metres wide, is now hidden in Antarctica. Here's a trophy photo. If not in space, then at least the stratosphere. In the seized archives, another mysterious document was discovered. It was a blueprint for a huge 139-metre-long cigar-shaped ship called Andromeda, with hangars for 5 of the flying discs of the Hanobu 2 and Vril type, for the secret bases of the Third Reich, including the Antarctic. According to American intelligence, by the war's end, the Germans had 9 research enterprises developing and testing flying discs. Were successfully evacuated from Germany. The 9th was destroyed. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Stevens recalls, were transported to Antarctica to the new place called New Swabia. At least one disc research company was transported to that location. The discs encountered in Antarctica in 1947 were probably not the same discs. Perhaps they were German discs flying on classical principles. Perhaps they were German discs flying on classical principles. This disc flew through the ship's rigging at such a speed it bent the radio antenna from its wash. Ones that had already been developed by the Third Reich.